I'm Matthew Woods, host of Leading Out of the Woods, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you are listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Coming up on episode 160 of the House of EdTech podcast, we are going to have office hours. And today, we're talking about podcasting, and I'm answering your questions with answers. Strike up the band. Welcome to the House of EdTech podcast. I am your host, Chris Nessie. The House of EdTech explores how technology is changing the way teachers teach and the impact that technology is having in education. I discuss technology that is changing our classrooms and schools, and I share tools and tips that you can hear today and use tomorrow. You're going to hear the stories of teachers, leaders, and creators just like you. The purpose? Whether you use it or not, technology is changing the way you teach and how your students learn. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for listening to this episode of the House of EdTech podcast, episode 160. I suppose somewhere that's a milestone. But we're not going to celebrate 160 episodes because we got a lot of work to do. Times are challenging and education is ever changing. Thank goodness for education technology. If this is your first time listening, welcome aboard. If you're a returning listener, welcome back. It's time to get our Anytime, Anywhere professional development going. And this is a unique episode because I'm going to be playing for you in just a minute or two something I did in the House of EdTech Facebook group back on July 19th. What I did was I conducted what I called office hours. And I let the group know out at chrisnessie.com/Facebook. Psst, that's how you get into the group. I don't actually promote it anywhere but here on the podcast. So if you're not in the House of EdTech Facebook group, go to chrisnessie.com/Facebook and join the group. If you're not on Facebook, I'm sorry, just email me, feedback@chrisnessie.com, and we can still have an awesome conversation. So what I did was I conducted office hours. And I felt like talking about podcasting, and I'm always getting questions about how to podcast, whether it's for personal, professional purposes or, how to get students podcasting in the classroom. So I decided, let me just get on to the Facebook group and do a live stream and answer people's questions, and let me see what questions people have in advance. Now, to prepare for this, just so you get a little idea of what happens behind the curtain, I was fully prepared to talk about a couple of things over the course of an hour, if nobody asked any questions. But people in the Facebook group came through, and I had, I think, 4 or 5 questions from a few different people in the Facebook community, and I just addressed those questions and demoed some things. And so while some of it is not great for listening, because I did a live stream where I could share my screen using StreamYard to stream into the Facebook group, so some of it may not translate too well into podcast form. I think you'll get value out of this, and my hope is that you will continue to understand that I'm here to support you, that I make this podcast and all the different things that I try and do, I do for you. I am looking to help you. Even if I'm not currently soliciting for topics or anything, if you ever have a question, just reach out to me. I was recently on a podcast, a live show called My EdTech Life with Alfonso Mendoza, and the Fonz, which I think is great as he likes to be called, the Fonz live streams his show, My EdTech Life, on YouTube on Saturday mornings. He's still in the early stages, so I'm not sure if it's week to week or if it's every couple of weeks, but he typically does it on Saturday mornings. And there was a woman who was watching live, and she made a couple of great comments and asked some questions throughout this live show that's available as a podcast. And, I connected with her on Twitter after the fact, And she kind of fangirled and, did a little bit of a freak out when she's like, oh, Chris Nesi followed me. And I'm like, I'm just a regular guy. I'm not an edgy celebrity by any stretch of the imagination. I could care less about, quote unquote, celebrity status, especially as a teacher, because I'm a teacher. All right. First and foremost, teacher, not too concerned with celebrity. So I was just like, I'm a regular guy. And, she replied like, oh, yeah, right. And even the Fonz, who, when he reached out, he's like, you were very, approachable. And, I wasn't sure if you'd even have time to write back and, even appear on the podcast. And I laughed at that. I mean, if you go and listen, I literally laugh at that because, I wouldn't be doing my passion and my job if I didn't have time for people, for you. And I talked about on that episode about respecting my audience, having respect for you and what I talk about here on the show. So that's why I have the Facebook group. That's why I stress building community. That's why I talk about all the time that feedback and questions from you put gas in my tank and bring me joy, because then I know, as much as I say I would just, do this for nobody, to know that you're out there listening and you have questions and you find value, that means the world to me. Now, speaking of the fact that I was on My EdTech Life, I was also on another podcast earlier this week, and this episode hasn't been released yet, but I will be appearing on an upcoming episode of Getting Unstuck. And the full name of that podcast is Getting Unstuck, Educators Leading Change. And I will certainly let you know when my episode is released, but if you go and subscribe, you won't miss it. And they do a really good podcast. Which brings me to my next bit of news and points, is that there are 2 new podcasts on the Education Podcast Network. One is the aforementioned Getting Unstuck, Educators Leading Change, and that podcast is hosted by Kirsten Reichert and Jeff Eichler. Here's a quick description of their podcast. Innovation Catalyst Kirsten Reichert and career and leadership coach Jeff Eichler help leaders and schools think differently about change. There'll be a link in the show notes out at chrisnesi.com/160 where you can check out Getting Unstuck, and make sure you subscribe because I'll be appearing on an upcoming episode. The other new podcast to the Education Podcast Network is called Leading Out the Woods, and it's hosted by Matthew Woods. Here's a quick description. This podcast is dedicated to all my fellow K-12 educators as I reflect on my experiences and best practices working in K-12 education as a former teacher and current administrator. I recently had an awesome conversation with Matt from Leading Out the Woods as he was being onboarded to the Education Podcast Network, and he is just a real down-to-earth, nice guy. And again, go to chrisnesi.com/160 and check out Leading Out the Woods. It's a really good podcast, which, because I'm saying it's on the Education Podcast Network, should tell you all you need to know about the quality of the program. And lastly, before I get into the office hours, we have a podcast returning to the Education Podcast Network, and I'm very excited to welcome back to the EPN family Dr. Dan Kreines, host of the Leader of Learning podcast. And if you're not familiar with Dan's podcast, here's a quick description. The Leader of Learning podcast explores transformational leadership in education. It is where educators can come to find inspiration to transform education through effective leadership. I am super excited, as the great Casey Bell would say, I am super excited that Dan is back on the Education Podcast Network. And I'll be honest with you, that's where Dan belongs, because we have a great collection of high quality podcast content for educators by educators. And if you're not subscribed, go do that. And if you're not familiar with the other programs we have available, go to edupodcastnetwork.com, and that'll give you all the information that you need. Speaking of information that you need, let's get into this office hours experience that I did back again on July 19th, where I did a Q&A on podcasting. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. I don't know when you're watching this, but I am doing this live. Right now it is Saturday, July 19th, 2020. It's Saturday. No, it's Sunday, July 19th. The joy of live. It is 9 p.m. Sunday night, and welcome to Office Hours. This is the first time I'm doing this here in the House of EdTech Facebook group, and tonight I'm going to spend an hour-ish amount of time, depending on how the participation goes. We're going to spend an hour talking about how to podcast, what your questions are, about either how to start your own podcast or how to get your students podcasting, because obviously I have experience in both, being the host of the House of EdTech, Podcast PD, producer of a number of other podcasts, and having brought podcasting into my high school classroom and, having coached some of the college students that I work with to be podcasters. So I'm very excited that you are here. If you are catching this on the replay, sorry you missed it, but hey, stick around. I do have some questions that came in when I put this out in the Facebook group earlier today, so I am going to be able to go through those questions. So we are going to be able to get right to that. But first, as I am sharing my screen, I do want to let you know that through the magic of websites and plugins and whatnot, I've integrated my shop into chrisnessy.com. So if you go to chrisnessy.com/shop, or if you just go to chrisnessy.com and click on shop from the menu bar, you will be taken to a secure place on the website where you can purchase all sorts of House of EdTech swag. So I know that being an awesome supporter isn't for everybody, but we all need clothes. So if you want to support the podcast in this way, you can go to chrisnessy.com/shop, and you can pick up a mug, a sweatshirt, a t-shirt, a hat. I actually have one of these House of EdTech mason jars on order because I think my artwork would look really, really good on a glass mug. So yeah, I'm looking forward to, again, trying to give you guys options and opportunities. I provide you value through the podcast. So basically, what is it worth to you? The other thing that I kicked off in episode 159 was the Buy Me a Coffee. So if you go to chrisnessy.com/buy me a coffee, again, if being an ongoing episode to episode financial support of the podcast isn't for you, a one-time, donation, again, if you get value from the podcast, here's another way that you can show your appreciation. Ultimately, if you just stay subscribed and continue to listen to the podcast, certainly that puts gas in my tank. Send me an email. Let me know what you think of the show. And, let's make sure that we are connected. Okay. Sounds good. All right. So tonight in these office hours, again, if you want to be a part of this and you have a question you'd like to ask directly, you can go to chrisnessy.com/join, and that'll bring you into the green room, because I am broadcasting here into the Facebook group via StreamYard.com, my favorite live streaming app. That's how I get into the Facebook group. That's how I can stream to Periscope and YouTube. It's what we use to do Podcast PD. If you also listen to that program that we do every other Sunday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, that's what Stacy, AJ, and I use to power Podcast PD Live and have people participate, like Jill and Lil Al and all of our friends in that community. And you might be a part of that community as well. But if you have a comment or a question, you can do that right here on Facebook as well. Just make sure you click the link in the post to give StreamYard permission. Otherwise, if you type a comment, I don't see your avatar or your name. And if I bring it up like this, it'll just say Facebook you, and I might not be able to know who is here. So would love to have you click that. And again, if you want to come in and ask a question directly, just go to chrisnessy.com/join. I will leave that down below here in the ticker, so that will always be there. And why don't we dive right in, because I did get some questions. And the first question, actually the first two questions, come from my good friend of the podcast, former guest. She's also a podcaster, and that would be Sam Fessich, Dr. Sam Fessich from the EduMagic podcast. And Sam's first question deals with, she's interested in learning about tools for podcasting to create transcripts of your podcast. And there is a tool that I will demo here for you right now. So let me share the old screen. And this is called Descript, Descript, Descript.com. And what Descript lets you do, it is actually really powerful. I'm going to show off the transcription piece, but you can record directly into it. And if you upload audio, which I will model for you in just a second, you can edit your audio by editing text. So I have a free Descript account. I'm using it through the web. There is also a program that you can download, also for free, and you get the same tools, but a desktop version. But let's take a look at Descript, which I have, looks like I have just under 3 hours remaining. So for me, if I was creating transcripts for my podcast, I could use this for my 2 episodes per month and not run out of time with what they give me for free. So I'm in Descript. I have a project set up called Descript for Transcripts. So I am going to drag and drop some audio. I will just use the latest episode of the House of Ed Tech, episode 159. So I'm going to drop that right in here. I'm on a Windows computer. So you see in the lower right-hand corner, it is adding the files. And I will show you what this will do is it will go through and create a text transcript. Now, my personal opinion is I don't think there is a lot of value in getting transcripts done. I mean, again, you could use a tool like Descript and it runs automatically, but even when I pull this up, there could still be, it's not going to be 100% accurate. And where this will run into trouble when you're doing automatic transcripts is, let's say it's me and a guest, or I have another voice, you got to go in and kind of sort out the formatting, and that can be really challenging. And if you're going to pay to have an actual person transcribe your podcast, that's going to cost you money. And personally, I don't see the need. But again, I mean, if people go to, my website to see a podcast episode, if they are hearing impaired, the links are there in terms of what I'm talking about. So I think that helps. And some people who tell you, oh, you need, transcripts, and that's going to help the SEO on your website or your blog. I mean, write your blog post when you're creating show notes, write for people. Don't write for Google to search and crawl your website. Write for people. So that's my 2 cents there. All right. So transcribe one file up to 95% accurate. And do I need to detect multiple speakers? Sure. Why not? Let's see what happens. Let's do automatic and we'll transcribe it. Let's see what happens. So my transcript will be ready in a few minutes. So while this is doing, again, this is not a cooking show where I have a finished turkey in the oven. So this is actually going to take time. So this is a 45-minute episode. This will not take 45 minutes. But the other question that Sam asked related to tools to advertise your podcast on social media. And yeah, there are things you can do to automate your tweets. I mean, my own website, chrisnessy.com, I have a plugin that will tweet out my show notes. And you've probably seen these on Twitter from @Mr. The plugin will automatically tweet out blog posts that are my podcast that are older than 30 days. The plugin for WordPress is called Revive Old Post. So it tweets it out. I have it formatted to put in the hashtag House of Ed Tech in the tweet, sends out the title, and away we go. And that does it automatically. So that is one way to promote your show. Another way to promote your show, and actually real quick, so it says multiple speakers detected in the MP3. Let's see, identify speakers. Edit with Descript for Windows. You can make edits to audio and correct transcripts using the free Descript for Windows. No, I don't want it. So, I mean, do I want to download this? All right, I'll download it. That way you get the full experience. Oh, don't have the app. So let's install this. Oddly enough, I have this on my school computer because I was playing with this with students back in February before the world went to crap. Again, if you have comments, leave comments here on Facebook, if you want to join the party and you have a question, or you just want to chat face-to-face, go to chrisnessy.com/join, and I'll be happy to punch you up and we can chat live. Pretty sure the download started. Sign in using my browser. Now all sorts of things are happening. There we go. All right, so I'm on the Descript app on Windows. So now it's asking me to identify the speakers. Thinks that there are 2 speakers. You know what? I'm not going to do this. Because the other speakers are just like the voicemail feedback I happen to have in this episode. And that's not important right now. Not that the feedback's not important, but we're not going to worry about multiple speakers. All right. Okay, so that's done. All right, so let me let me shrink this down. We'll use this here. So this beginning piece, hi, I'm Sam. Hey, go figure. I used Sam's bumper for the Education Podcast Network. So here we go. Let's play this out. Let's see what happens here. Why can't I hear? Right? Why would it let me hear anything?
Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at ed.
Oh, hold on. Let me fix the screen sharing. Let's share the whole screen. There we go. All right, so now you guys can see everything. You probably heard it, all right, but let's just bring that back to the beginning.
Hi, I'm Sam Fessich from the EduMagic Podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Coming up on episode 159 of the House of EdTech podcast, I'm going to be talking about teacher evaluations. I've got a great tool for distance learning that I'm going to recommend to you. And we're going to talk about Google and Flipgrid updates. Oh, and of course, there's a House of EdTech VIP. Strike up the band. Welcome to the House of EdTech podcast. I am your host, Chris Nesi. The House of EdTech explores. All right, so let's take a look at some things here in just the beginning of this transcript. So I could easily call this, it's not unknown speaker. I can call this, EPN bumper. We're going to call this Chris. And then it's me the rest of the way. All right. So what can I do here? So let's actually get into where I start talking. Let's see. I can click on a word and it brings me in the audio down here at the bottom to where that is. So here we go. Welcome back inside another episode of the House of EdTech podcast. I am so glad that you make this show part of your anytime, anywhere professional development. It's my hope that after today's episode, you will definitely have some things that you can use in your classroom as quick as possible. Let's get right into it. And the first thing I want to share is if you enjoy. So for all intents and purposes, I have this text that I can just click anywhere. And I can highlight it, and I can copy it, and I can go into my blog post, and I've got a transcript of my podcast, and it's that simple. Okay. So this is, according to them, this will be 95% accurate. But again, things like my name, chrisnessy.com/ buy me a coffee, so Chris Nessy is not spelled correctly anywhere in this transcript. So I could go in and do a find and replace in, say, Google Docs or, something like that. But this is, the whole episode in text form. All right. There was something I just saw here. It talked about filler words. Let's see. Filler words. Delete 25. So filler words. Like, things like that. This will go in and delete 25 of those from within the transcript and my audio. So Descript is actually powerful because you can edit audio by editing the text. So just let me show you an example of that just from somewhere here in the middle. All right. So here's where in the episode I'm talking about Ken Shelton being the VIP. So here we go. Let's start there. Ken is an Apple Distinguished Educator and a Google Certified Innovator. Ken has worked extensively at the policy level and was named to the California State Superintendent. So let's say that Ken wasn't an Apple Distinguished Educator, and I said that by mistake. I can go in and highlight Ken is, and now that's not even going to be there. Let's see how that works. Ken is a Google certified innovator. Ken, how cool is that? I deleted the text, and it's a nice clean edit of my voice, so long as when I'm speaking, the words don't run together. So let me undo that. Let's say Ken, let's just go with that. Ken has worked extensively at the policy technology community. Ken has worked extensively at the, so I mean, that's pretty clean. So again, you can use Descript to very quick and dirty get transcripts of your podcast. If you want to dig a little deeper, Descript could also be used to edit your podcast. You can also record directly into Descript, and it can process, and it's a pretty powerful free tool. You can do more powerful transcription by upgrading to the Descript producer, but this is actually, really, and I can slide words around. I can just kind of eliminate stuff. Again, I'm not going to do that. What else here? I can shorten gaps, so removing the silences. So all things that I already do in Audacity when I edit the podcast, I can do with Descript. But again, to answer Sam's question, Descript is a tool that's free that I would recommend for getting at least a quick and dirty, up to 95% accurate transcript of your audio recording. So check out Descript at Descript.com. That's DESCRIPT.com. It's free. Check it out. Descript.com. Thank you for that question, Sam. All right. Next question from Sam related to, so we're done with Descript, but here you go. Even, in the web-based version, it's all here. It tells me where I'm at in the audio, 4 minutes in, I'm scrolling, I'm 8 minutes in, etc. So again, Descript, really cool. All right, Sam's other question. So tips for or tools for advertising your podcast on social media. So the tool that I recommend, and as I started to talk about, I have a plugin on my website that automatically retweets my episodes from my website that are older than 30 days. Okay. That doesn't take any effort on my part. It's just that, on my website, I will, put in people's Twitter handles, because when that plugin does its thing and tweets out the title from my website, it will acknowledge somebody's Twitter handle if it's in the title of the blog post. So if you take a look at some of my tweets, you'll see that I'll have their name and their Twitter handle in the title of the blog post, which you might think, well, why would he put it there? That's why. Something that takes less effort, that's also really cool for promoting your podcast, is Headliner, which you can find at headliner.app. And Headliner allows you to promote your content with video. So let me just log into my Headliner account. Headliner, again, is free, and it's actually a web-based video editor. I've talked about it on the podcast previously. And what they allow you to do is you can create audiograms. So these are short video clips that have the audio of your podcast in it, and you can choose to make them. But what I do is, so you can do video transcript, you can do full episode, you can do podcast audio. So let me slow down. Some people like to put their podcast on YouTube. Now, one of the only ways to do that, or how you do that, is you would have to create a still image if you're an audio only podcast like the House of Ed Tech. I don't record video of me doing my episodes that I put out. So when I record the audio, if I wanted to put it on YouTube, you can't just upload audio to YouTube. So what you would have to do is take the audio, put it with a picture, and now you have a still image with an audio as a movie file that you upload to YouTube. I do this automatically through Libsyn. That's my podcast media host, LIBSYN.com. Promo code Nessie gets you 2 months for free if you want to host your podcast with Libsyn. Libsyn has what's called destination publishing, and they automatically send my podcast to my YouTube channel, And on their end, they do that whole process of taking some artwork that I put with my episode, and they create that video and send it to my YouTube channel. So there's that. The other thing that is really powerful for promoting your podcast is what I use Headliner for primarily, and that's the automations. So this will look at a podcast that you give it. So you can see I have given my Headliner account, House of Ed Tech, and also Podcast PD. 2 automations are inactive. What's going on? Oh, anyway. So what it will do is it will look at the episode and it will create. Oh, I don't want it to email me a video. I want to see the video. Okay, so we'll go here. All right, so I have it set up to create these automatically. 30 seconds, 45 seconds comes up with the orientation of the video. And I can go in here. Let's do the 16 by 9 because this is what I would put out on Twitter. And it's going to show us this video that I would download to my phone or my computer and, automatically tweet out through TweetDeck. And here we go. So this is a video where it has some of the artwork from the episode. And let's hear the audio. I know I've talked about the human element being absent from education. And, more often than not, I witness it being absent between how administrators and teachers interact with each other. And with that being said, I'm actually going to demonstrate something for you right now. I'm sitting here recording this podcast just in the middle of the content, and my wife and my kids were out at my mother-in-law's house, and now they're home. So I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to come back after I've spent some time with them, and I'm going to continue the episode. So you're not going to notice a gap, but I will be right back. And just like that, again, I could have other little effects in here, maybe a transcript or the WAV file moving on the video. There are people who do that. I used to do that. I just wanted to keep it simple, so I have the progress bar. But again, it found this 42 seconds in here. It just helps me to promote the episode. The other one, I think it's the same clip, but it is 1-to-1. And this is something that I would share out on Instagram or someplace where the video would be seen as a square. So this will be the same thing. It should look a little. So here you get the full artwork for the episode. And with that being said, I'm actually going to demonstrate something for you right now. So I'm not going to play the whole thing again, but I can download it. I can tweet it from here. I can send it to Facebook. I can throw it on YouTube. I can send it to Instagram, all from right in here. Or I could choose another clip from this episode. So audiograms are also a great way to tease and promote your podcast. And again, I do this through a website called Headliner. And again, that's headliner.app. So Sam, hope this answers your question. And for everybody who's not Sam, if you're creating a podcast or you're creating content, Headliner might be a great tool to use. Descript might be a great tool to use to edit audio or create transcripts. And those are definitely some powerful tools. Thank you, Sam, for the 2 awesome questions. All right. Next up, we have Nate Nagel. Mr. Nagel, former guest of the podcast, talked about how to use technology when you are absent. And he wants my thoughts on Anchor. Okay. So I think Anchor can be good if you use it correctly. What do I mean? Let me take AJ as an example, because AJ Bianco, he now creates the Reflect Ed podcast, and AJ decided to use Anchor to host his podcast. Nothing wrong with that. Anchor is free. So again, that's okay. So let me show you a little bit of the back end of Anchor. Do I have that here? Okay. Basically, if you go through and you sign up for Anchor, Anchor is going to make it really easy for them to make it easy for you by saying, we'll submit your podcast everywhere. We will send it out. We will send it to Apple. We'll send it to Spotify. We will take care of all of that, so you don't have to. The problem is, if you let Anchor do that, Anchor controls and has access to stats and information, some data that you should have access to. All right. So don't let Anchor submit your podcast on your behalf. Then I'm okay with it. because Anchor will give you, and I'll pull up, I'll show you the back end of AJ's podcast. So AJ, this is AJ's RSS feed. And what I had AJ do is use a website called Podcast Mirror, which basically takes this RSS feed and makes it into a different one. And we submitted that link other places because that link that we created looks at this one from Anchor. And if AJ one day decides, I don't want to host my podcast on Anchor anymore, AJ can very easily change his media host. And let's say he moved to Libsyn. Libsyn would provide him with an RSS feed link. Okay. We would then take Podcast Mirror and tell the Mirror, don't look at Anchor anymore. Look at Libsyn. And then we've changed where the podcast could be hosted, but it doesn't impact Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts or any place that AJ had submitted his podcast to be published. All right. And then you just come in here and you want to do the manual distribution where once you get that link from Google Podcasts or Breaker, all the places your podcast is, you just want to make sure that you control your podcast if you use Anchor. If you do that, I don't have a problem with it. Go for it. They make it easy. I mean, their app is pretty intuitive. You can edit your podcast right on your phone. You can record on your phone. You can have guests on your podcast via the Anchor app. And, for example, with AJ, he records separately, and Anchor just lets you upload a pre-made MP3 file. That's what I do at my school with the little podcast network and morning show that we do. We do that on Spreaker so we can live stream it. And then I back it up using Anchor by uploading that MP3 file to be archived and kind of put on the school website, through Anchor and kind of, those things. So, I mean, Anchor, perfectly okay. But if you're not sure about anything I've said in the last couple of minutes about taking control of your podcast on Anchor, just shoot me an email, feedback@chrisnesi.com. Ask me a question here in the Facebook group. If you want to use Anchor for your podcast or your students' podcasts, I'll be happy to walk you through and kind of give you a more personalized tutorial about how to do that and set it up so that way either you or someone you love is in complete control of your podcast. And I did that for AJ because I love AJ. Again, if you want to ask me a question, again, we're talking podcasts and podcasting tonight during these office hours, which I'm going to try and do through the summer and probably a little more regularly in the fall. But if you want to come on and ask a question, by all means, go to chrisnesi.com/join, and that'll bring you to StreamYard. You don't have to turn your webcam on if you don't want to. That's cool. Or again, type a comment here on Facebook. Anything you want to ask about podcasting, either for yourself or for your students, I'm here to support you, and I'm going through some questions that people posted. By the way, let me just say, if you haven't noticed, I have the new background, the new studio, so to speak. In essence, I have kind of rotated and we kind of remodeled this room a little bit. I didn't tear down the walls again like I did a few years ago. We just kind of shifted the furniture. And if I kind of swing out here, I used to face this way, but not here. Over in the corner, I would look up at this frame, and everything here was just to my left. You might remember I used to have the picture hanging, or you'd see, the shelf, So now I'm on this longer wall on a new desk, and the desk, I got to tell you, super cool, super DIY. The desk I'm on is a 28-inch wide, 80-inch long interior hollow core door from Home Depot. It's pretty cool. I do have to post pictures. I will do that, but I'm still kind of sorting out my mess. So that's what I'm working on. But I trimmed the door out in pine. So it's trimmed out. Get to use the nail gun, use the router, put the nice trim, 2x4 legs. So it's a wider desk facing this way. My wife, Caitlin, has the same desk over there. And you see her little maker sewing station that I built out of a door that we had, back there. So got the, still have the light, have the cell phone camera holder thing, still have the boom arm. Life is good. So again, I do need to post some pictures of the desk. But cost wise, even if you're just looking for a nice home office desk, the door that the desktop is made of was $47 because I got the door without the hole in it where you'd put the doorknob and stuff. Although you could get that and then you could like run wires through it, and it's got a nice hole in the desk. But I opted for the solid, no hole, because I have the monitor mount kind of clamped to the back of the desk now. And by doing it all out of wood and doing it yourself, that gives you the opportunity, like underneath and on the 2x4, I have my surge protector mounted. And again, so the door was $47. I bought better 2x4 lumber that I squared up on the table saw and everything, because we have the garage of EdTech kind of behind the camera and down in the garage based on how I'm facing. So I would say each desk was $75, and I did a nice finish on it, a couple of coats of polyurethane, and it's solid. I mean, I can't sit on it, but it's holding everything up, and I will post pictures, in the coming days. I apologize that I hadn't done that already. Anyway, next question. By the way, if you're enjoying the office hours, please, give us a thumbs up, like it, leave a comment. If you're watching this after the fact, and you got value from this, just leave a comment at any point, send me an email, feedback@chrisnessy.com, or just leave a comment here in the Facebook group and just let me know what you might like to see future office hours cover, or if you have other questions about podcasting and creating content. Again, I'm happy to help. So tonight so far, we've covered tools to create a transcript of your podcast. We've talked about a tool to promote your podcast on social media. And besides Headliner, again, on your computer, Windows, Mac, Chromebook, get TweetDeck so you can have some columns set up and organize your Twitter presence. Nate Nagel asked about Anchor. So I just finished talking about Anchor. I just talked about, my DIY desk. And our next question comes from Jacob Dunn. And Jacob asks about scripting your podcast. So what I'm going to show you, let's share the screen again. This is, and I've talked about this before on the show, this is workflowy.com. And Workflowy allows me to create these bulleted notes. If you go to chrisnessy.com/workflowy, you can get some additional free access that is good forever. So if you use that link, you get a little more than what they give you if you just go to Workflowy and sign up. So I outline every episode of the podcast. Okay. Let me play. No, I don't need to play it. But this is, what I work from. Some things are scripted, but again, there are some things that I record once and I don't say them all the time over and over again. I have here this app, Jingle Palette, on Windows, and let's say I'm starting an episode, so I can go to EPN and I could say, all right, I'm going to hit record and let's pretend we're starting an episode.
Hey, I'm Gretchen Bridgers of the Always a Lessons Empowering Educators podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network. Shows on the network are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Coming up on episode 159 of the House of EdTech podcast, I'm going to be talking about teacher evaluations. I've got a great recommendation. I've got a tool to talk about distance learning. And the point of this episode, we're going to talk about Google and Flipgrid updates. And of course, we've got the House of EdTech VIP. Strike up the band. Welcome to the House of EdTech podcast. I am your host, Chris Nessy. The House of EdTech explores how technology is changing the way teachers teach and the impact that technology is having in education. So the intro to the show, I don't record that every time that I do it. I recorded it once. I've been toying with updating it, but that version that I've been using, I recorded back in 2017, if that's how you talk, and sometimes I do that too. So that's it's created, it's there. But the rest of the episode, I work from these outlines. So again, this is the email that I got from Belinda Durling. Shout out to Belinda. So like for the featured content, I had, bullet points and just notes that I type up. There are some things that I can do off the top of my head. Most often, the EdTech Thought just has a title, and I just kind of talk off the top of my head. I might jot down a question, or, when I sit down and give it a lot of thought in advance, I will write down some things that, again, sometimes I'm reading what I'm saying and sometimes I'm not. It depends. I like to think that I have developed the skill to read something and not sound like I'm reading it. So, for example, I can just very easily talk about the fact that Flipgrid announced in its yearly major update back on June 29th, 2020 at Flipgrid Live that it's got some great new features coming. So some of the features that are going to be coming to Flipgrid are going to be in the Flipgrid Educator Dashboard, the Flipgrid Learner Experience, which is how your students engage with Flipgrid. They've made some great improvements to the camera, and they've also enhanced the Discovery Library. Now let's jump in and talk about how they've improved the Flipgrid camera. So the camera is the heart of Flipgrid. So again, let me stop there before I am like doing the whole episode over again. But I just go through and I'm looking at these bullet points and I'm just speaking, and some things I say verbatim, some things I don't. My best advice is that you have a plan. Work from an outline. There are very few people in this world who can just hit record, who that's the only thing that they do. So just hitting record is what I want you to do to get started. Okay. But when you want to get better, you need to outline. And when I started the House of EdTech, using Evernote to organize my show notes, everything was scripted. And I said the introduction to the show every time I recorded the show until I learned little things to make the process go easier, and I improved my workflow. So again, the point of doing something like this is I can help you improve your workflow before you even hit record to give you some things to consider and kind of get you going and kind of flatten that learning curve and remove the bumps from the road. So that's what I can do. But Workflowy is the tool that I use, and I've been using it. Let's go back to show notes. We're on episode 159, and I've been using this since episode 77 when I moved my first set of show notes in here. So actually, why don't we go back to episode 77 and see what that outline looked like when I started. So I think there was a sponsor. Yeah, go figure. Nate Nagel used to do summerpd.com. He and Courtney Kofelt, she's not Kofelt anymore, she's married, but Nate and Courtney sponsored a few episodes of the podcast. So we had the sponsor section, the intro, again, any little notes I have, feedback, things I want to talk about, links that I want to remember, or just make it easy to copy and paste stuff into my WordPress blog post. That's all here. Here's a recommendation, just some quick things about Pixie Clip from back in that episode, EdTech Thought. Again, just a couple of bullet points where I talked about, one word 2017, my word is pusher, blah, blah, blah. But that's all I went on to record that EdTech Thought. So there you go. Featured content. Again, this is a conversation. This is back when I went to New York EdTech Week. So this was a bunch of audio clips. So I had audio from these different people. So it was just prompting me which audio clip I was going to be playing and moving on to. So there you go. So anyway, what I do recommend is workflowy.com. If you go to chrisnessy.com/workflowy, WORKFLOWY, you get more than what they give you for free. If you use my link, you get a little bit more. I also get a little bit extra. And basically what that means is how many bullet points do you get on your free account to create things. So again, it's a great tool. They have a nice mobile app. It's web-based. You can also get a desktop app, but if you're on a computer, just use the browser or use your phone. And it's real easy to just create these nice outlines that flow. You can move things around. Obviously, you saw you can mark things as complete. So I just kind of keep this going, and I have a template one set up that I can go in, and I have basically things that I do here. So if I wanted to use this one to create another episode, I can duplicate it and I can create episode 160, the show notes for that episode. And there you go. So Workflowy is what I use for scripting and organizing and planning the House of Ed Tech. So hopefully Workflowy could work for you. All right. Next up, Khaled, my man from across the pond. Khaled wants to know, what's the best way to host a conversation between two people or a group? Should I invest in two microphones, or will one do the job? Also, what is the best way to record the audio from a virtual meeting? Google Hangouts, Zoom, Skype, and do they need editing to make them sound better to listen to on a podcast? All right, I'm going to sort of work backwards. No matter what kind of podcast you create, everybody needs to edit their podcast. That doesn't mean you have to go in and take out every but you have the opportunity to clean it up. Do that. And if it sounds bad, do it again. People who are on the radio are so jealous of podcasters like myself who have the chance to turn on the microphone. And if you make a mistake, you can redo it. If you make a mistake on the radio, you just keep going. So every podcast should be edited. Every piece of audio should have some type of post-processing. I will wind up adding a link as a comment here to my YouTube video where I talk about the process I use in Audacity to edit and post-process my audio. Not editing like what I say and, trimming stuff out, but EQing the audio, normalizing the audio. How does the audio actually sound? I've got a great YouTube video that walks you through that in Audacity. If you find yourself using another program, you can probably adapt this process to that program, because I actually adapted it from somebody else's content that was for Adobe Audition, which is the Adobe sound editing program. So I took that process and adapted it to Audacity, which is free, and that's what I use to create the House of Ed Tech podcast. So yes, you should be editing, even if it's you by yourself, edit and process the audio to make it sound the best that it can. So what's the best way to record the audio from a virtual meeting, say Google Hangouts, Zoom, or Skype? Okay. If you're using Zoom, you can record from within Zoom. You can record your conversation. There's also a setting in the Zoom setup where you can record you and all the people participating in your Zoom call and get separate tracks for each person. Editing multi-track audio is going to give you the opportunity to really fine-tune your editing. Okay. If you just, you say you go live to YouTube and you just pull down that audio, that video, and you open that video in your audio program so you can just edit the audio, which is what I do for Podcast PD. We stream live to YouTube. I pull that down, I bring it into Audacity, and I can edit just the audio. The only downside is, in doing that for the last couple of months, if there's crosstalk or people talking over each other or anything like that, I can't go in and, eliminate that. But there's a tool that I do use and subscribe to. It's called Squadcast, and I'll talk about a couple of others that let you and your participants record your conversation where you get everybody's audio on its own track. So, for example, let me share the screen again. Let's get rid of that. Two that I recommend. One is called Zencastr. The other is called CleanFeed. And what they do is they let you record remote interviews in studio quality, because what they both, or what Zencastr does at least, is it records each person locally and it uploads those files to Dropbox. The site that I use, but I'm not in the right browser because I'm using the Brave browser. But in Chrome, you can use and pay for a site called Squadcast, which I do subscribe to. It is some of the best $200 per year that I've spent on the podcast, where I can video chat with up to 3 other people, and it records, when I record it, just the audio, and it records everybody individually and I can pull each of those tracks into Audacity. And now I've got a multi-track setup where I can edit myself and a guest or myself and co-hosts. So that's really nice. Currently at Zencastr.com, you get unlimited guests and recording time currently during Corona time. So you can get in, you can try it. But their freemium plan lets you do it for free with 2 people. That's you and one other person. And I think their lowest tiered plan is $20 per month. Yeah. Okay. So currently for free, you get more than 2 guests. You get more than 8 hours per month. You get to record in a high quality MP3, and you could pay for some post-production, but maybe you're like me and you just want to edit it yourself. Or if you don't want to edit it yourself, call me. You could hire me. I edit podcasts. You know this. But their professional plan, unlimited guests, unlimited recordings, live editing, soundboard, $20 a month. You can get the WAV file, which is getting a WAV file is the highest quality recording. And then from there, you turn WAV files into MP3s and you compress them, and, you do all your editing on WAV files. Okay. So that's one. The other is called Clean Feed. And this does the same thing. You invite people with a link and you can record people in the multi-track. Now with theirs, if it's you and one other person, when you record in the multi-track, what it winds up doing is it records you in stereo. And when you edit it, you'd have to take that stereo track, split it to mono, and then bring each person back to the center. So that way it's not like me talking in your left ear and my guest talking in your right ear. That would drive me crazy. I assume that would drive you crazy if you were listening to a podcast that did that. But yeah. All right. So what are your settings here? Audio quality. Yeah. Speech optimized. You don't need this high quality stuff. Playback device. Yeah. Blah, blah, blah. One capture device. Let's see. What is Get Pro? So you get some so there are some different features. You can try the Pro, but you can get away with, again, just bringing in somebody and talking with audio. Again, the difference here is you cannot see the person you're talking to, but that's okay. If you're like me, you've talked to people on the phone, and that's okay. Not a big deal. You don't need to see who you're talking to. But let me bring up Chrome, and I will show you Squadcast. Again, Squadcast, I think their pricing is still, it's $200 a year. That gives me unlimited recordings and sessions. And again, it records each person, not their video, but just their audio. It records them locally on their computer. And then you put them together in your sound editing program of choice. And then it sounds like you're in the same place. So if everybody's using a good microphone, then you won't have any issues. But while this is just loading, I don't need to sign up. I already have an account. But Khaled also asked, should I invest in 2 microphones? If you are in the same place, then I would get a digital audio recorder and get each person a microphone. If it's going to be you and a co-host and a guest, get 3 microphones. If it's just going to be you and one other person, get 2 microphones, and find a way to record that stuff in the multi-track. So you can do aggregate devices on a Mac where you can connect multiple USB microphones. Obviously, the best case would be something like I have here on the desk, the Zoom H6 or maybe the Rodecaster Pro, which are portable audio recorders. And you can then be recording multi-track, each person on their own microphone. And that's going to be the best case scenario. If the best you've got is a Blue Snowball or a Yeti, make do and just, again, make that one recording, try and record in the best possible space, not in a room. If you're in a classroom, try not to be in a room that's just cinder block, or try and be in a space that isn't, loud and a lot of echoes where sound is going to be bouncing all over the place. But yeah, I would invest in a microphone per person. And the best bang for your buck would be the Samson Q2U microphone. It's a USB XLR microphone, and I think it's like $60 on Amazon. And to go to chrisnessy.com/Amazon, you could search that up. But yeah, so let me show you a previous session. I don't have any previous sessions. It's been a while since I've used this. I don't even remember what I did on April 21st. Anyway, but Squadcast is really cool. Zencastr has made improvements. So they were having some issues with audio but I feel comfortable recommending them again. And certainly Clean Feed can be a good tool where, again, you can capture everybody that you are participating in your podcast with remotely. Again, if you're in the same place, try and have a microphone per person. That's my best advice. If you're using something like Skype, you can get if you're on Windows, it's the MP3 Skype recorder. That'll record both sides of your Skype conversation. But on a Windows machine, I do prefer to use Voicemeeter Banana, which is a digital audio mixer soundboard for free. Go to, if you just search Voicemeeter, and meter has 2 E's, Meeter, Voicemeeter, and it will let you basically kind of route all the sound on your computer, which is how I do a lot of what I do here on the House of Ed Tech. So those are all the questions that I got. Office hours has, we will cap it at an hour as we approach 60 minutes. I want to thank you for checking this out live or checking out the replay. If you have questions about podcasting that I did not address, leave a comment, send me an email, chrisnessy.com, feedback@chrisnessy.com, and I will see you on the next episode. Take care. So I hope you enjoyed the first office hours that I officially did, and I wanted to bring it over here to the podcast and release it for you because I felt it was a good idea, to be quite honest with you. And secondary to that, I hope it inspires you to join the community and become more active as a listener of the House of Ed Tech podcast. Again, I wax poetic on a regular basis about my desire to interact and engage with you, the listener, and here is a great, easy way to do that, aside from email and Voxer and Twitter, which, again, any place you find me, if you reach out to me, I will respond to you. So, again, I want you to be a part of this and come out and join the Facebook group. Go to chrisnessy.com/Facebook. I will let you into the group because I and some other people, we do approve people who ask to join. So just come on over, have some fun. We talk about education, we talk about technology, and it's a great place to connect and grow personally and professionally. And I certainly welcome you to be a part of that. Thank you for listening to this episode of the House of EdTech podcast. Thank you in advance for coming over to the Facebook group. Again, just go to chrisnessy.com/Facebook. Let's keep the conversation going for this episode. I want to connect with you, and I want to hear your thoughts on the information and resources shared in this episode and every episode of the podcast. Show notes for this episode can be found at chrisnessy.com/160. You can also send feedback by going to chrisnessy.com/feedback, and there are a number of ways that you can reach out and share your thoughts and ask your questions. If you enjoy the House of EdTech podcast, the best thing you can do, and it's the most important thing that I ask you to do, is go and tell somebody else about the podcast. Tell one other person, a teacher that wants to do podcasting, either for themselves or they want to do it with their students, and the information and things that I shared in this episode will help them. If they've never heard of me, also tell them, hey, you can email this guy and he'll reply. He's approachable. Do that. The other thing you can do is you could also become an awesome supporter of the podcast. My awesome supporter program is powered by patreon.com, and that allows a consumer of content like you to support a creator of content like me. It's value for value. What value do you place on the House of EdTech podcast? If the value you place on it is sharing it, that's great. If you want to do more, go to chrisnessy.com/awesome, and you can join the ranks of Carlos Garza, Anthony Arnaud, Dan Gallagher, Jeff Herb, JP Prezavento, Kyle Wilcox, Mike Messner, and Peggy George. They all find value in the podcast and take their support to another level. If you'd like to do that, go to chrisnessy.com/awesome. The other thing you could do, if maybe that's not your thing, you could simply buy me a coffee. Go to chrisnessy.com/buymeacoffee. Special thanks to Diane Clausen, who recently supported the House of Ed Tech after listening to episode 159. Maybe you will feel inspired after this episode. Speaking of episodes of the podcast, the next one is of course going to be episode 161, and that's going to come your way on August 9th, 2020. Until next time, thank you for learning with me. Thank you for being a part of this program. And remember, using technology isn't difficult. Just give it a try. I mean, what are you waiting for? Just find something new to try and then send me feedback about it. Just go try something. Anything. And let me know. I'll see you next time.